Well, I want to welcome everybody here this evening. This is our time to have breakfast together. I know, this is fantastic, isn't it? I love making breakfast for dinner. And yet, oftentimes we sort of forget how it is that we're supposed to be making sure that we put this breakfast together so it's feeding and fueling our body properly. Now, I know tonight we're going to be answering a lot of questions. In fact, for those of you who are out there on Facebook Live, I want to welcome you. We have an audience in-house. So in turn, we're going to have part of this conversation, which is fair to share in a group like this. It's fantastic. But I recognize that one of the desired benefits of us coming together in community is that we get to share with one another. We get to answer questions. So at some point, guys out there on Facebook Live, guess what? We're going to be putting an end to electronic transmission, and we're going to continue this in-house. Now, my desire for each and every one of us is that we come together in group in order to learn more and more and more. Because in these moments, we also not only get to learn, we get to share with one another. So I'm looking forward to the continued conversation. So, building a better breakfast with Dr. Baker. So, many of you are probably wondering, well, how in the world does this guy have any right to stand in front of me and tell me how to cook breakfast? Well, a few of you are a little bit older than I am. A few of you probably have a little bit more years in the kitchen. Used to do it for a living, but I've also been trained. Been trained by my wife. I have had the opportunity of being brought up to understand better nutritionally some of the things that we need to look at and consider when putting together our breakfast. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about right away is the simple fact of why in the world should we be even eating breakfast? Now, many of you probably have heard, what does this word really mean? Break fast. Well, yeah, we're breaking from a fast. Anytime we even talk about, when we get up in the morning, when we awaken, it's been 6, 7, 8 plus hours since the last time we have consumed absolutely anything. Now, I want you to think about this for just a second. I want you to think about how long do you normally go without drinking something? A glass of water, a little bit of coffee, some juice. How long do you go? I mean, listen, I'm surrounded by this stuff all day. Some of you are walking around with your water bottles in hand right now. And, some of you just grab water from the water cooler. We normally don't go very long without consuming the items and the things that we need. Now, food is one of those things that, yes, we can only go a certain length of time. And after a while, this resource that we've taken in, well, our body exhausts it. It's sort of like gasoline. It doesn't stay there forever. Just because you put gas in your gas tank one time doesn't mean that you're done for life. You have to continually refuel and feed the system. Well, our body is no different. Absolutely not. We need to constantly be thinking about planning for that next meal. Now, probably one of the biggest things that you're going to take away from this conversation tonight is going to be about the reasons why you're going to need to actually be thinking about your breakfast. We haven't even gotten to, what's on the table over there or when am I going to stick in my mouth, but we're going to deal with the why. And the why is really big because in the end, most of us just simply bypass the thought of why am I even doing this? We stop, we just simply shove something in our mouth and, okay, so what is it doing for me? Well, in this case, we're going to talk about breakfast as a whole. Because we're breaking from a fast, and we have literally depleted all of the resources that are within our system, we have to look at, okay, so what does this stuff do for me? So the very first thing up on this list is better concentration. Anybody know somebody who walks around in a daze? They're in a fog. A couple people. Well, the problem is that, listen, this is not a chiropractic thing. This is a human anatomy. This is physiology 101. This is how your body works. In fact, even the guys who do research on sleep studies, they will tell you one thing. when you starve the body, eventually you're not going to sleep well. Anybody even want to guess why? So, your brain has a natural desire to survive. And it says, oh my goodness, I'm hungry, I need stuff, and since it's not here being provided for me, I'm going to go search for it. I'm going to go find it. So the hunger center of your brain wakes you up out of a deep sleep and says, go find food. You know, there's these animals out there in nature. Maybe you've heard of them. It's called a bear. You know, yeah, they have a tendency of when all of those natural resources that they call blubber have gone, all of a sudden nature wakes them up. It says, go find honey. Right? Well, we're no different. See, our brain requires this nutrient. It requires these things in order for us to function properly. And even the level of concentration that we're able to have is dependent upon us feeding and fueling the body properly. That goes with memory and problem solving. I mean, you've probably been around people either on a job or maybe you've walked into a department store and you've asked some very simple questions, some very basic things. You know, where do I find this? Can you make change for me? And people aren't able to do some very basic things because they're not able to focus. They're not able to concentrate. They're not able to problem solve. See, when we starve our brain, yeah, those basic things that we think should be second nature, well, they just don't happen. And finally, you know, that improved concentration. You know, we have a basic understanding of why we should be consuming. And I say basic because I'm going to tell you, in this few minutes, we can only scratch the surface of why should we be doing things. Same with this. What should we be eating? So I'm going to boil down this conversation to really one basic thing for you. And at the end of the workshop, listen, we're going to talk about takeaways. We're going to talk about what are those big key things that you want to, you know, focus on. One of the really big key things for me in regards to what we should be eating is to recognize this very first line that's up there. It needs to be a complete balance of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Now, I know fats are bad, right? Everybody shake their head. Oh, good. I'm so glad that people are doing this. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, fats are not bad. Your brain is 85% fat and water. If we're not providing it that resource, then guess what? We wither and we die. So if there's one big takeaway that I want you to have is that, listen, you know, for creating breakfast, it takes more than one simple component for us to actually get the desired outcome that we want. Now, I know they teach you fats are bad. Oh, carbs are even worse. They're terrible. You know, that goes straight to your waistline. It's a horrible thing. I know. Pack it on. No. I know. Terrible thing, isn't it? And yet, I can't tell you how many people that I see, they have for breakfast a piece of toast. A bagel with cream cheese. That's their breakfast. I know, there's some of you out there. See, the problem is that when we throw the body out of balance, when we're not providing that balance, really bad things happen. And in fact, you know, we want to make sure that there's fiber in there, but this third line is super important. In fact, this third line is just like water for us that we talk about here in the office with all new patients, is the fiber, is the protein level. Most of us underconsume proteins. It is a definite, difficult task. If you're a vegan, if you're a vegetarian, it becomes even more daunting for you because of some of the limitations. You should remember those numbers. Those are on the low end of the scale, that 18 to 28 grams. We need to be consuming protein. Because one of the reasons, in fact, without getting too scientific with you, one of the reasons for actually having that level is to reduce the insulin spike, to reduce that blood sugar level rise. And when we talk about, burning and crashing after we've eaten, well, guess what? Oftentimes it's because we're consuming things like sugars and carbohydrates that don't have that long-lasting, that filling effect. But if we're consuming enough proteins, guess what? Not only are we going to be filled, but it's going to allow our body to continue to be able to function without us feeling hungry and starved over a longer period of time. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you've never heard that on the, that bottom line, for those of you who can't read it, oh, by the way, fresh. That does not mean that it's going to come out of this, aluminum can or out of a box. Fresh is always best. In fact, you're going to notice up on the counter there, there's one product. It is a simple product. And I'm going to show you how simple it is in a few minutes. How uncomplicated. See, many of us, every meal comes out of a box, it comes out of a can, it goes into the microwave. And let me just tell you, it's not okay. That's not what food looks like. It's not what food is supposed to taste like. And if you can tell me what all the chemicals on the side of the box actually mean and what they do, well then guess what? You're a better person than I. Because you need an advanced degree in chemistry to understand what some of this stuff does. And if we don't know what it is, and if we can't say it, well guess what? We shouldn't be putting it into our bodies. So in turn, those minimally processed foods are absolutely fantastic. Now, we're going to talk about a plan, okay? Because in the end, we all have to plan for what is it that we're going to do next. How is it that we're going to get the stuff that's on the table there? Well, the very first thing is we have to come to the table, well, pre-table, more like the grocery store, with a list in mind. We should be planning out how are we going to feed, how are we going to fuel our body, and have that shopping list in mind. And, we also have to recognize that not everything should be a 3-hour length of time that it should take us in order to prepare a meal. I love the fact that today, as we talk about some of the things that we're going to present to you guys, listen, these are things that we do personally. Because as a dad, 2 kids, has a business to run, has a personal life, guess what? We can only spend so much time in the kitchen. We can only spend so much time preparing. And yet, if in fact we set ourselves up for success, it can be simple and easy and quick in order to do it without taxing ourselves. Because that's what I hear from parents all the time. Maybe you've heard this before. I'm busy. The kids got up late. They're in a rush. It takes too much time to make something that's healthy. Or even worse, it's too expensive to eat stuff that's better for you. Well, I'm just simply going to shake my head. I'm going to go toe-to-toe with you. Because today we're going to demonstrate how simple and easy it actually can be. So, the very last thing, I recommend don't get bored. Don't get bored in the kitchen. One of my great joys is that normally the night before, my daughters, who are not very shy, some of you have met them, okay? And they are what we call consumers. So guys in the room, my daughter can probably eat you under the table. Just saying, okay? Yeah. They give me that list. This is what I would like for breakfast. This is what I would like for you to make for us. And I love the fact that, they like pushing the envelope. It's like being at a diner. I'm not sure what's going to come down the line next, which is a fantastic thing. But you know what? By changing and creating that variety, that different combination, we get the opportunity of keeping it fresh and new so that we don't get bored just eating the same thing every single day. See, to me, food is supposed to be fun. I was taught working in the restaurant business, food is supposed to be food. It's supposed to taste like food. not like salt, not like preservatives, and it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be creative. You're supposed to make different combinations to actually explore your taste buds and allow the body to experience how wonderful the foods that we've been given, that we've been provided, actually are. So, this is about time that we're going to take a pause from Facebook Live. We're going to say goodbye to them in a second. So for those of you that are on Facebook Live, listen, like I told you, you know what? We're going to end our presentation for tonight. This is one of my desires, is that you're here in person next time. As we have these type of opportunities, I want you to gather together in groups so that you can be part of this community also. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.